And we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this licensing subcommittee, Friday the 11th of September 2020. This afternoon, we're hearing an application for a grant of a premises licence, Oktoberfest in Chapelfield Gardens. I'll start with the formalities of the meeting. First of all, do we have any apologies? Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies, thank you. And declarations of interest. None? Okay, thank you. Right, okay, I'll introduce myself first. My name's Ian Stuteley, I'm the chair today. We have members of the committee, Councillor Marion Maxwell and Councillor Caroline Ackroyd, Sarah Moss, who is our legal representative, and Rachel, who is our licensing officer today. And we also have Mr. Neil Roberts, and I'll ask you now to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm a director of NRCO Limited and we are the applicant.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have two officers looking after the technical elements of the proceedings today. Okay, first of all, we'll hear from Rachel, who will introduce the report, please.
Right. Purpose. Members are asked, in accordance with the delegation of licensing functions contained in the Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy, Licensing Act 2003, to consider the application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of Chapelfield Gardens, Norwich NR2 1RP, following the receipt of relevant representations. Recommendation. That members determine the application to grant the premises licence in accordance with the Licensing Act of 2003, guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and Norwich City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy. The application. The applicant is NRCO Limited, and the application seeks to allow the licensable activities, times and opening hours as set out in the application form, which is attached to Appendix A. This also includes the steps proposed to promote the licensing objectives in the operating schedule. Relevant representations. No representations were received from responsible authorities. However, a representation objecting to the application has been received by a local resident, and a copy of this representation is attached at Appendix B to the report. Norwich City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy. Attached to Appendix C are the elements of the City Council's local licensing policy which are considered to have a bearing upon the application. National guidance, issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. Attached to Appendix D are the elements of the national guidance issued by the Secretary of State that are considered to have a bearing upon this application. Summary. In determining the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, i.e. the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. The representations, including supporting information presented by all parties. The guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, National Guidance, and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Grant the application as asked, modify the conditions of the licence by altering or omitting or adding to them, reject the whole or part of the application, and I should remind you at this point, although I omitted it in the report, that the committee also has the power to refuse to accept proposed DPS. Point 8. The subcommittee is asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must actually be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. The representations received appear to relate to issues that fall under licensing objectives. The subcommittee is directed to paragraphs 20 and 24 of the local licensing policy, Appendix D, which contain examples of factors that impact on the licensing objectives that the applicant could consider when addressing these issues. These paragraphs also contain examples of control measures that may be taken into account in operating schedules having regard to the type of premises and all the licensable activities. The subcommittee is also reminded of the contents of Appendices 2, 3, 4 and 5 of the local licensing policy, which is not reproduced in this report, which contain pools of model conditions relating to the 4 licensing objectives. Concludes the report.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now I'll turn to Mr. Roberts and ask you to tell us a little bit about NRCO Limited, the background of this event in Norwich, the history of the event and what you plan to do in the future, please.
Sure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to the committee. In terms of just from the very top of what you requested, NRCO is my company, and we, in conjunction with another company, run Oktoberfest, amongst other things. But Oktoberfest is one of the events that we run. We're an event management company, basically. We, in this regard, are very much the health and safety, licensing, site management, and sort of practicalities, nuts and bolts delivery of the event. We work with another company called Bavaria Events Limited. They focus on the marketing, ticketing, sales, and the fluffier end, if you like. Myself and one of the directors of the other company got together in 2016 and decided to run a couple of Oktoberfests, one in Brighton, one in Portsmouth, really as a trial to see what they were like. And we chose 2 very different venues. One was a city centre in Portsmouth and the other was a racetrack in Brighton, out of town. We ran them really to trial them, see how they went, see if there's a commercial appetite for them, but also have a look at some more practicalities of running these events. They were successful, both in terms of their delivery and commercially. So we ramped that up to 2017, where we did 16 cities across the country, doing 3 sessions of Oktoberfest in each city. So 2017 went very well. Obviously, it was a very big upscaling. We had 4 teams running across the country, delivering over 4 weekends. Again, very successful. 2018, we did another 18. Probably overstretched ourselves in terms of commercial objectives, I would suggest. And we rested quite a number of them for 2019. And we went back down to 4. And for this year, we were back up to 10. We were going to do 10 planned. In terms of that global picture, if you like, we've never had a license refused. We've never had a license reviewed. Our delivery, we pride ourselves on delivering very safe and successful events. And we've had to date over 120 sessions of Oktoberfest with over 100,000 people through the doors, with very, very few incidences at all. In terms of Norwich, we came to Norwich in 2017. We delivered 3 sessions of Oktoberfest in Carrow Road in the car park and worked with the football club. And the sessions were between 2,000 and 2,500. They were significant. You know, they were amongst some of our larger ones. To my knowledge, we had no issues at all with those. We had no complaints that I know about. No noise nuisance. We were visited by the police during the weekend. I think it took a courtesy visit as much as anything else. They left us happy. And as far as I say, we had no licensing issues whatsoever. The venue was not particularly suitable in regards to it was a very, very tight venue, and just the movement around it in terms of the build, vehicles, that sort of thing, didn't really suit us or the football club. So 2018, we worked with the council and we went out to Eaton Park, giving us a lot more space. And again, as far as I'm aware, we had no issues in regards to the licensing objectives. However, commercially, it wasn't as successful as we might have liked. And I think we've kind of learned, if you go too far out of town, it is an obstacle. It is a barrier to people, I think, to get to the event. So we decided to 2019 last year to rest Norwich as a destination for us to visit. But we were obviously working with the council again to come back this year. Obviously, COVID has put paid to that, but come back to Chapelfield Gardens. As I say, COVID has put pay to that, unfortunately. And so we have rolled the session forward to next year, and hopefully, license permitting, that's what we should do. So this year, well, I say next year, I should say, sorry, we're looking at the 1st and 2nd of October 2021. So you would be our first weekend amongst another weekend we're running elsewhere. And we're planning to do 3 sessions. The session on the Friday is a 90s session, which is last year with some of the Oktoberfests remaining strong, but maybe not as strong as they were a few years ago. We introduced a 90s event on the Friday, and that worked very well. A similar kind of audience in many ways, although the Oktoberfest is maybe slightly more male than female, the 90s event is more female than male. But in terms of the behavioural patterns of the audience, in terms of the age of the audience, they're quite similar. And so both of those events kind of sit nicely alongside each other. So we're looking at doing it on the Friday between 1800 and 2300 hours. And on the Saturday, we'd be looking at doing 2 Oktoberfest sessions between midday and 5 o'clock, and then another one 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. The capacity that we looked at in terms of Chapelfield Gardens, I have visited the park twice, drawn a site plan to scale. It's going to be a smaller Oktoberfest than we've had before, but again, as I say, potentially some of the commercial elements of it would suggest that that's not a problem as such. So instead of the ones we delivered at Carrow Road, where a session would be between 2,000 and 2,500, we're looking at, well, a maximum in the Oktoberfest is 14,740. So it's significantly less. And we'll see how ticket sales go. The 90s event can go slightly higher in terms of capacity because there's not as much furniture inside the structure. But we're looking at maybe 1,500 people maximum, I would have thought, for the Saturday nights. Just to kind of go through maybe give you an idea of what the site and the delivery looks like. We use Circus Big Tops. They give quite a nice wow factor. They're kind of big and boomy, very much like an Oktoberfest music hall, which is partially why we use them. We have an external fence line. So basically, the external fence line allows us to control who goes in, who goes out. Everybody who comes in is wristbanded. So Oktoberfest, you've got VIPs, you've got unreserved benches, and you've got some standing. But everybody gets wristbanded, as well as all the crew. So if security sees anybody on the site without accreditation, they can challenge them. So we make sure that we secure our footprint as such. We protect, I noticed some of the comments that Susie Wilson, the lady who represented, mentioned. We're very precious about not damaging the sites we go to. Of course, we go to these sites in October, but I would say we've probably damaged one site more than what I believe we should have done. But every other time has been well protected. And there were kind of reasons why that other site was damaged as it was. We lay metal trap down for the vehicles, so the vehicles can park on metal trap way and not damage the ground that way. The big top itself, we put a wooden floor down, so that protects quite a large space in the big top itself. and we try to utilise parks and any sort of hard standing areas that exist. And obviously, Chapel Hill Gardens does have some of that. People who come to our shows dress up. There's a lot of people dressing up. It's quite a light-hearted environment, and we encourage that. All our staff are our front of house staff, sorry, I should say, not all of our staff, obviously security, etc. Front of house staff are dressed up in lederhosen and that sort of thing. And the entertainment is fairly light-hearted, and I think that breeds quite a light-hearted entertainment, sort of a light-hearted approach to the evening. We don't tend to get, as I said before, very many problems with our audiences. The bar is fully functioning as you'd expect, but obviously no glass. All the staff receive training, and we keep a refusal log, all those sorts of things. We operate to Challenge 25, although it's an 18+ event. We operate to Challenge 25, and we've got two sets of measures. One is on the gate that operates to Challenge 25, so nobody goes through the gate unless they've got the right ID, the pass card or the driver's license, whatever. And then again, we've got the second check at the bar as well. Again, it's not the kind of event where youngsters try and get in. Really, they're just not bothered, which is great for us. So we're over 18, as I say, and we're very firm on that. And the whole site is designed with safety in mind. Things like, for example, the power in the venue. We don't just rock up with one generator. We have either two generators. One is a standby, one runs the show, or we have what we call a twin set, which is a generator, one big box, but it has two sides to it. So if one goes down, that side kicks in. The house lighting in the venue is on maintained lighting. So if all the generators go down, they're maintained. So we maintain a level of lighting to allow us, if we ever, touch wood, we never have had to, but should we ever have to evacuate, lighting is maintained throughout. Things like our noise, our audio is designed to reduce and try and prevent loose nuisance, and it's designed like a surround system rather than having just two big stacks of speakers. There's speakers within the tent, so we can keep the volume in the tent at a very workable level without having to overkill and overspill. And if you know Carrow Road, that was one of our first ones we did back in 2017, and there was a block of flats, not, I suppose, 20-30 meters away from us, not even that, I don't think. And we didn't get any noise complaints from those people. I'm not saying they couldn't hear it, but I don't think it caused nuisance, as I think we would have known about that. Our SIA company that we use is a company called Vespasian Security. They're very good at what they do. They're fully registered with the SIA, and obviously, keep all the records of their staff and checking on their badges and what have you. And over the years, they've got to know how these events run as well. They conduct searches. We search bags on entry. We don't allow glass in, obviously, and we're searching for glass and alcohol coming into the site. And we search individuals on a random and targeted basis. So it depends on the environment at the time and any threat levels, but by and large, we search people on a sort of a targeted basis. We search all bags. Going back to one of their roles and going back to the bar operation, we don't allow anybody to leave with alcohol. We do allow them to leave. They can buy plastic steins, souvenir steins. We do allow them to leave with those, but they have to empty them first. And we have like an area just literally pour them out if they arrive at the gate and they want to leave like that. That can lead to some issues which we've had in the past, in as much as local licensed venues have said we allow them to leave, and we absolutely don't. But what some people do is leave, go to a pub, buy a pint and pour it in their stein. And so I'll put that out there now, because that may be something that comes back in a year's time. But yeah, it won't be because we're letting people leave, because we don't. The waste management, again, is a professional waste management company. We recycle where we can. We have recycling different bins and that sort of thing. And we have a team who are on site from the Thursday, the day before we arrive. They set all the bins up, whatever. They're there right through the event, and they don't leave until we're done. Leave no trace is a mantra that we try to live by. In terms of noise management, we set our dB levels on the Friday to make sure that we're running at suitable levels. As I say, we've never had issues with noise, which is great. We operate through the Noise Council's code of practice, as you'd expect for this kind of event. Another thing I know that licensing committees can be interested in is traffic management, and I can say with hand on heart that over all the years we've never had any issues. People just don't bring cars. It's just not. I guess it's not that much fun. It's not like going to a gig where you can enjoy the music without drinking. You know, people. You get some designated drivers, but very, very few. An event this size, I did put it in the event safety management plan. I did do the calculation, but I can't remember exactly, but it's less than 20 cars or something we would expect to come to this event. And that goes back to the very first events we ran, which was out of town. We wanted to see, we had parking for, I think, 300 cars, and we literally had about 15 cars turn up. And since then, we've had no issues with traffic management whatsoever. In terms of this application, obviously being open-ended, we'd love, like with all of our events, to come back annually to Norwich. And the police obviously have asked if we would provide our supporting documents on an annual basis, a minimum of 6 weeks before. Absolutely fine. That's what we find in every city that we work in. In reality, we probably put those documents over a good 3 months in advance, I would think. So people can assess them, and obviously they're available for SAG to assess if they want to, and that obviously includes all our risk assessments, fire risk assessments, etc. And just say we're fully insured. We cover all of the public liability insurances and everything else. So we like to think that we run professional shows. We've never had any issues with any licensing authority in regards to the delivery of our shows. And as I say, not last year, but 2 years prior to that, we delivered events in Norwich that I believe was well received by the people who attended and did not impact on the licensing objectives. That's me.
Okay, thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation. So I've got a couple of questions just to start off. This license application is to run in perpetuity. What other cities do you have this arrangement in, please?
Well, the cities that we used to go to and we've moved away from for commercial reasons, those licenses have lapsed. But in every, firstly, in every city that we've ever been to, we've always had that arrangement until the license has lapsed. Sorry. As it stands, we have this arrangement in Colchester, Milton Keynes. It's just about to be approved in Lincoln, Middlesbrough, Swindon. Colchester, we operate under the council's licence and have been doing that for 3 years now. Portsmouth, and a couple of others that I can't. Worcester we still to apply for, and there's one other that slips my mind. But it is very much the norm, I would say. It's absolutely the norm. We've never been issued a licence for just 1 year, for example. That's not happened.
Okay, thank you. And we understand that you have set a date for 2021. Has that been agreed with the council?
Yes, in terms of the venue's availability, it has, yes.
Right, okay. Rachel, can you confirm that for us, please?
That would probably have been confirmed with our Parks and Open Spaces department rather than being confirmed with us. We've only got the dates that was due to be held this year on the application documents at the moment.
Right, okay. And are the parks and open spaces able to allocate that time?
I would assume it. So if Mr. Roberts is advertising and he's agreed it with them, yeah, yes.
Right, okay.
Sorry, can I jump in? All I was going to say was our contact is Lewis Cook, who's an officer in culture and events. He's the one who has confirmed the availability. Okay,
thank you. Right, any questions from other members first, please? I've got Marion first, I saw first. Councillor Maxwell. You need to just unmute, Councillor.
I can't seem to
That's okay, we can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, you can. Thank you.
Yep.
Just a couple of questions. We talked about car parking.
Yes.
You visited the site, haven't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
twice.
So we wouldn't have any cars parked on the site. So was it for yourself or was it for people attending?
Yeah, the car parking that I talked about was for members of the public, and what we would do is point them to city centre car park paying displays. The only cars on the site would be our senior members of staff.
And have you got permission for this them to be on the site?
Yes, Lewis very much knows the operation because we obviously delivered it in Eaton Park, so he knows that we do put some cars on the site, but it's very much backstage. I say there's quite a large pathway there that we can leave a few on there.
Yeah. I went to one in the park last week, and there's a caravan park there, so I just wanted to check that you it was
right, okay.
Yeah. Okay. How many people are you expecting at any one time?
I would say maximum. Well, the Oktoberfest, because of the furniture we put in, etc., the maximum we can have for Oktoberfest is 1474, so 1,474. The 90s event on the evening is more open plan, and we can probably fit, I would think, 2,000 people. However, I think I'd be delighted if we got 1,500. If I'm being honest.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you said you've got a building like a circus bit, big top, and I think you said something about the noise, but does it contain it quite well?
To a degree, yes. We have openings in the walls of the marquee, so people can go out to where the toilets are, etc. And that's probably the weak spot. Other than that, they do offer quite a good level of attenuation, and they have to keep us. Our external noise levels aren't usually very high at all.
Okay. Yeah, because we've got one in the park at the moment, and that's yeah. And I was surprised that when I went in, you can't really hear that much out from outside.
No, that's right. They're good. Yeah. They're good. Yeah.
And will you have security on all of the entrances? Because there's quite a few.
What? Sorry, entrances into the big top itself?
No, into the park itself.
Oh, sorry. Well, don't. We enclose the whole our site. We enclose that in fencing. So
yeah, I'm sorry. You did. Yeah, you did say that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've written it down.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
That's right. Okay. And you'd have security on each of your entrances as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. I think that's all I want to ask at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ackroyd.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was just a bit of clarification. Page 17, I think it's page 17, where you said we would like to continue to offer food as people depart the event, which will support the steady egress and promote the responsible consumption of alcohol. And I just wondered if you could clarify that a bit as to the food is served in the tent or outside or outside, and how do you control noise outside when people are getting food and so on and so forth? How does that work? I mean, is that never a problem?
Not as such. So if you think of, so 11 o'clock, music's off, bars been closed for 10 minutes or so, and people start to move out of the big top of it. So they move out of the big top into the area that is still inside our footprint, where we have toilets. It's a grass, so the grass area has toilets. Our medical team are based there, and food outlets. And we found that keeping just the food outlets, not the bar obviously, but just the food outlets open for about half an hour, it means that some people will queue for a burger, that sort of thing, and it just slows down the egress a little bit. It just helps with not everybody trying to leave at the same time. If I'm being honest, it's not a massive help, but it does help somewhat. And I do think, encouraging people to eat when they've been drinking is obviously a very good thing. So it certainly does help with those two things. In terms of the noise, we have signs that say please leave quietly, respectfully, that sort of thing. We will enforce that with our security if we feel people are being overly noisy. But fundamentally, people generally leave quite quietly and just get on with it and the way they go. I think again it's to do with their age. Our kind of average age is well into the 30s, I would have thought.
Okay, can I ask you one more thing about that, please? Because you said you continue for about half an hour, so that would be no later than the 23:30 timing, presumably.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got a question about the perimeter fence around the footprint of the event. You say you've done a plan for this to date. Where in the park, or how much space will be left around that? Can you identify within the park where you intend it to be?
Yes, I'm just trying to think.
Just clarify, you haven't sent that to us as a document, have you?
I did forward it originally. Yes, I did with the application. I did forward that. So basically, the site that the part of the site that we're looking to use is near the the main vehicle entrance into the park, and then it splits in like a V, I think. That's the area, the main grass area where we would be based, and just slightly this side of the bandstand. So basically, I think we're taking up, in terms of the park, the whole park, I think we're taking up 40%, I would have thought, something like that. We will leave as much walkway around it as we can, so that I think, to my knowledge, if I can remember right, we can leave most of the pathways open for the build, and we'd have to close some of the pathways for the show days themselves. But certainly there's a good 50-60% of the park still open, and people can enjoy that during the day anyway. So yeah, I mean, certainly the site plan is available. I did forward it, so sorry about my powers of description.
Right, okay, no, that's fine. Rachel, do we have a copy of that site plan?
Yeah, that was with all the additional documents that were emailed over. Should have been with all the supporting
Okay, before
document.
that, Sarah has a comment to make, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I have got the site plan here with the documents, if it's the same one that Mr. Roberts is referring to, received in the licensing office on the 18th of June, has a full site of the plan.
Okay, is it possible for us to share a screen so that we can have that in front of us?
I'm not able to share my screen by the looks of
Lucy,
it.
I think you would have to help us with this.
Yeah, bear with me a sec.
Should be able to share the screen now, Sarah.
Lovely, thanks, Leonie.
The reason I've asked for this is so that members and members of the public that might be watching on the live stream can have an understanding of where the proposed site will be in relation to the residential properties that are in the area.
Sure.
I would have to find the document, Chair. I just can't see it quite come up here.
Okay, I'll ask while you're doing that. I'll ask Mr. Roberts another question about the perimeter outside of the tent area. Do you have tables and chairs there for people to eat their food, or are they encouraged to go back within the confines of the marquee?
It's very much street food, so your bratwurst, that sort of thing. So it's very much the type of food you would eat standing up anyway. But they can go back inside and sit at the benches if they want, or they can stay outside and eat it outside. Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily put tables and chairs. We don't put tables and chairs outside, and probably would avoid that just because you've got natter and noise and that sort of thing. So yes, they've got the option.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm referring in particular to the objection that we received from Mrs. Wilson, one of the residents in the area. Her concerns are really about the peace and quiet in the area. So the licensing objective would be the noise and nuisance. So that's what I'm sort of thinking about here. And you say that the noise is relatively well contained. So I'm just interested to see where on the site it is. Oh, we had it then, and it's
Yes.
lost.
Would you like me to put it up again?
Yes, please. Yes.
I will do. I don't want to interrupt you in full swing there.
That's okay.
There we go. Can you see that okay?
We can only see the top part of it. Yeah, that's a bit better. So let's get our bearings first. So can you describe, Sarah, could you just scroll up so we can get the...
I think it needs to be rotated 90 degrees clockwise.
Yeah.
It's under view, I believe.
View. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Rotate again.
No, I think that's
okay.
fine.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. So we've got on the left of the screen, we have Chapelfield Road. Is that correct? And Chapelfield East leads up towards the city centre. Is that correct?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the city wall is on there. On the road, and further up towards the top left there would be the underpass which leads across towards Vauxhall Street area. Okay, so that particular site is in a corner of the site opposite from the Chapelfield Road North, where Mrs. Wilson lives. So hopefully she will be reassured by that to some degree. Okay, so dealing with the objection from Mrs. Wilson, could you describe perhaps in more detail for the benefit of those that are worried about noise, a little bit more about how you plan to position the tent, the openings that you have, and what sort of flexibility there is in there, because on three sides of this park you've got residential properties, and on another side you've got a main road. So orientating this towards the main road might be the better plan.
The biggest weapon we have in keeping noise levels down is the design of the system we use. And as I said earlier, what we have is, and basically what we produced. And if I'm thinking back, it was actually produced because of the events that we did in 2017 in Norwich, in the car park of Carrow Road, where we were so close to a block of flats. So I worked with our noise management, the company we get in to give us advice on things, and the production manager at the time, who is still the production manager for the event, on a kind of a more surround sound system, so that the speakers are, instead of having a stage where you have two very big speakers stacked, basically firing straight out, the speakers there and the ones throughout the market, the big top, are more angling down. So any spill, if you like, that unnecessary noise and spill is kind of absorbed in the ground, if you like. So we don't get an awful amount of noise coming out of the marquee and causing nuisance. We have our senior management team, they're known to us. They're not, we don't allow people to turn up and control the PA system. The people who operate the PA system know that we want to return year by year, and therefore make sure that we stick well within our dB levels. It's not a competition to who can play the loudest. It's about having a reasonable volume inside the tent, and with as little excess noise as we can get away with. The councillor earlier was saying that attenuation within inside and outside of a tent is quite good, and we do benefit from that. As I say, some of the openings that we have, obviously that is a weaker point, but we try to design them so that they are not facing, the closest residential property, etc., etc. Again, it's another reason why we don't look to, because particularly the 90s event, and to some degree the Oktoberfest, we could have looked at, going to 12 o'clock or half 12 or whatever, but we all know that the code of practice is very clear. 11 o'clock is a bit of a watershed. I know obviously you can continue, but obviously DB levels drop after that. So we're happy to end it at 11, which is a reasonable time to end. And yeah, we do, as I said earlier, things like noise nuisance from people egressing the site. We're very clear about trying to encourage our audiences to leave quietly and considerately. And I think the good thing about where it is placed at the moment, by the time people get to the edge of the park, they do become a little bit more dispersed. And by the time they start getting close to the residences, they should be just merging with, the general flow of people in the city centre at that time of night. So we are very much aware of these issues. And I would say to Susie Wilson, who wrote the letter, and any other resident, if from the time we get there to literally on the Monday when we get there to build the site, to the around Monday 6 o'clock-ish by the time we leave, there's always somebody there. We have 24/7 security, and if it's not security overnight or whatever, there's a member of our senior management team. Come and talk to us. If someone has a problem, come and talk to us, and we will do whatever we can to remedy that. But as I say, the design of the site is very much done with reducing nuisance in mind, because commercially it makes no sense for us to upset our neighbours.
Okay, thank you. I did want to just cover that again, just because it was the main crux of the objection that we've received. Members, do you have any more questions? Okay, Sarah, do you have any questions for the applicant, please?
I do, thank you, Chair. Mr. Roberts, you mentioned in your the licensing objectives under section 18 that you've had feedback from the events in Norwich in 2017 and 2018. Where did that feedback come from? Who gave that feedback?
Two sources. One was obviously the public, who enjoyed the event, and people saying, yeah, really enjoyed it, it was great, X, Y, Z. And of course, people don't tend to say that if it's not well delivered, I think they go hand in hand. And the other side is from the culture and events officer himself, who has, I have spoken to him about other events, and I think that was on the back of successfully delivered events for those 2 years that we were in Norwich. So really from those two main sources, I would say. And I'd probably chip in as well that I think a lack of contact from the police and licensing officers is always a good thing.
Okay. You mentioned there are two companies that I think you're working with: Field Vision Bars and Vespasian Security.
Yes.
Yes. How long have you worked with those companies for?
So Vespasian, since the start of this, so it was actually 2015 was the first time I worked with them on a different event. And yep, they're very good. Field Vision, one of the key personnel in Field Vision used to work for a company called Freeman's, and we worked with Freeman's for a couple of years. He moved to Field Vision in 2018, I think it was. And so we used them last year, 2019, for the Oktoberfests, and they're very good. So we would very probably be working we would almost definitely be working with Vespasian next year, I would suggest, and very probably Field Vision. Although, of course, because of this year, let's see what's happening next year when we start to appoint companies. But yeah, we've worked with both of them for a few years now.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the event that you're planning for next year, so there'll be a maximum of around 2,000 people. How does that compare with previous events that you've had in other cities? Is this one larger or smaller, or?
If we got 2,000, so I would say that our largest event, our largest session, if you like, was 4,000. And our smallest usually are around the 1,000 mark. So I guess Norwich is just, I think, partly because the size of the park and what we can comfortably fit in there, it's a kind of a small to middling one, I would say, in Norwich.
Okay, thank you. You've obviously worked with a lot of companies in putting together all this, all the documentation that you've submitted with the application. Have you worked at all with the police or any environmental health departments in putting those together, or asked for opinions or worked with them in any way in the past?
Only in as much as a lot of the documents are a reflection of events that we've done in the past, and having feedback from different officers in different fields across the country over quite a number of years. So these documents weren't shared prior to the application with any of the responsible authorities, but obviously they've seen them as part of the application process. And for example, there's something we adopted in regards to fire risk assessments, fire safety, that's in there. That was as a result of an event that we did in 2017 in Stoke, and a fire officer turned up and said, "Why don't you do this?" It was like, Yeah, that's a really good idea. So they've evolved over the last few years of doing these events. So yeah, they've been, you know, through the mill, I would say, through the process, which is great.
Okay, thank you. Just one final question. At the close of the event, so you say that's about 11:30, how long does it take roughly for people to disperse away from the area completely?
I would say by, I would say quarter to 12. I would say 45 minutes from us ending the show, we're pretty clear. You know, even by that half an hour, you know, we don't sort of push them out too quickly, but you know, we do sort of move them along, and then when people do go. So yeah, I would say 45 minutes. I would say maximum.
And then is it just a very small amount of staff who remain on site, who are clearing up and that sort of thing?
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for that. Are there any more questions from members? Rachel, I've got a question for you, please, and that is just, can you confirm, did the licensing department have any complaints about the previous 2 Oktoberfests that happened in Norwich?
No, our environmental protection officers would have been advised upon receipt of the application,
Yes,
and they had no comment to make, so weren't
received,
aware of anything.
Yeah, okay, we would have received a representation from them had there been a fair number. Okay, right, thank you everybody for that. If there's no further indications from anybody that would like to talk, Mr. Roberts, you've had quite a long time to talk. I hope you've covered everything that you want to.
No, absolutely. No, thank
Yep,
you.
okay. In that case, we'll move to our other group and make our determination and come back to you shortly. I would say in order for people to also have a comfort break, I would recommend that we come back at around 4:45, please. Okay, until then, thank you very much.
I would just place Rachel and Mr. Roberts, I'll place you in the waiting room again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Members and Sarah will have to leave this meeting and rejoin the other meeting. Okay, thank you. We're just waiting for one more member to rejoin us, and then we'll start again. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Before we start again, can I just check with Lucy or Leonie that we're live streaming, please?
Yeah, we are.
Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back to committee meeting, subcommittee for the application of a license for Oktoberfest. I have a statement to read out with the determination. So, the committee unanimously grants the application as sought, with the addition to the premises licence of the following condition proposed by Norfolk Police and confirmed as acceptable by the applicant. And that is, a copy of the event management plan and risk assessments will be submitted to Norfolk Police and the licensing authority at least 6 weeks prior to the event date. The committee took account of the fact that there were no responsible authority objections to the application, indicating that the police and the Environmental Health Department have no concerns regarding the applicant's proposals. While noting the written representation of interested party Ms. Wilson, who was not attending the hearing, the committee is of the opinion that insufficient grounds or evidence have been put forward in the representation to suggest that the licensing objectives would be undermined if the premises license were to be granted. In addition, it was noted that whether there was a need for an event of this kind is not a relevant licensing matter for the committee to consider when coming to a determination. It was noted that a review system is available in the future. Having heard submissions by the applicant, the committee notes the particular controls to be put in place to minimise noise disruption to local residents, including positioning of the tent and speakers and monitors of dB levels. In addition, the committee notes the provision of security measures aimed at keeping public nuisance to a minimum. Having particular reference to the operating schedule and documents submitted by the applicant in support of their application, the committee concludes that the applicant has adequately considered all implications of holding the proposed event, including concerns under the licensing objectives, and has thoroughly addressed those implications and concerns within the operating schedule and supporting documentation, and including in this committee. In coming to its decision, the committee has regarded the statutory guidance as outlined in section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, as well as the council's own licensing policy. The applicant and any person who has submitted a relevant representation has a right of appeal to the magistrate's court within 21 days of the date on which they are notified of the decision. And that concludes the statement. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions relating to the determination or wish to say anything? Okay, thanks very much. Thank you all for attending today, and that concludes this meeting. Goodbye all.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.